Chapter 151. Sorry to keep you all waiting. Let's head out. Faye immediately turned around, her eyes filled with admiration. No worries. You're right on time. Mr. Cannon said we had to wait for you. For someone like Faye, who had incredibly high standards, to admire a guy this much, he had to be exceptional. And he had just arrived. The other ladies in the group also greeted him, their faces lighting up with respect, admiration, and a hint of quiet infatuation. But they were well aware of the gap between them and him. He was too far out of reach. He was someone they could admire but never hope to stand beside. Even Seth, who clearly didn't want to, showed a hint of deference as he said, "Luca's here." "All right, let's go." Luca was on a completely different level now. He was someone Seth could no longer afford to antagonize. Upon hearing the familiar voice, Earl turned around. Under the warm glow of the streetlights, Luca stood there, radiating an effortless elegance, his dangerously good-looking face carrying an air of untouchable confidence. His expression was naturally reserved, but there was an unmistakable aura of prestige about him. After winning the National Young Vocalist competition, Luca had been swept up in non-stop events and training sessions. He had even moved out of their dorm to avoid disturbing his roommates with his schedule. Though they kept in touch over the phone, Earl hadn't seen him in a while. Running into him here was unexpected. Earl couldn't help but recall how Seth had once tried to sabotage Luca's career. Had Luca really let go of that grudge? Or had Faye played mediator, convincing Luca to put the past behind him? Then again, even Luca wouldn't openly start a fight with Ronald backing Seth. Earl smiled and greeted him. "Luca, it's good to see you." At the sound of Earl's voice, Luca froze for a second. Then, recognition hit him, and his entire demeanor shifted. "Earl." His eyes widened in surprise. "What the hell? You're here too. Are you here for the concert?" Faye and the rest of the group stared in shock, not only because Luca knew Earl but because his usual cool and composed persona had completely shattered the moment he saw him. Luca had always carried himself with an air of detached superiority, a man who rarely showed genuine excitement for anything, yet here he was, grinning like an idiot, seeming genuinely happy to see Earl. Faye was momentarily stunned, and she stammered, "Wait, do you know him?" Luca blinked. "You know him?" Faye nodded slowly. "Yeah, I do." Luca burst into laughter. "Well, that saves me the trouble. Earl's my old roommate. I was going to introduce you to him anyway. Since you already know each other, I don't have to do any of the work." The surrounding ladies gasped in surprise. They had never seen Luca, who was normally distant and reserved, act so enthusiastic towards someone before. This was proof enough that Earl held serious weight in Luca's life. Faye, who was still processing everything, felt a strange sense of shock. Luca had mentioned before that he had an insanely talented dorm mate, someone he had even learned from. But she had never imagined it was Earl. Chapter 152. Faye had always assumed Luca was exaggerating when he mentioned having an insanely talented roommate. But now, she realized that he had been dead serious. The revelation hit her like a freight train. She narrowed her eyes slightly, looking closer at Earl, the boy next door type she had always overlooked. How many secrets was he hiding? Earl, who had always seemed so ordinary, had somehow mentored Luca, someone she had practically idolized for his musical genius. Faye wasn't the only one having this reaction. Luca, picking up on Faye's obvious shock, raised an eyebrow. "Wait, you seriously didn't know?" he asked. "Earl is insane on the guitar. And his songs are unreal." Faye's voice came out a little stiff. "I mean, I knew a little, but not much." She vaguely remembered one moment, Earl playing "Time" by the river. That melody had stirred something in her. But back then, she hadn't thought much of it. She had assumed he was just a guy who could play decently. She never imagined his skills were at a level where Luca, a rising star in the industry, would publicly credit him. Luca, completely oblivious to how much he was wrecking everyone's perception of Earl, kept going. "You remember that time I thanked a friend on TV?" He smirked. "Yeah, that was Earl." The moment the words left his mouth, the entire group fell silent. Earl had specifically asked Luca not to mention him too much in public. He had never been the type to chase the spotlight. But this wasn't a press conference, and to Luca, credit where credit was due. He wanted Earl's talent to be recognized. Faye's eyes flickered between the two of them, trying to process. Luca had always been a prodigy in her eyes, someone she looked up to like a legendary figure. But now, standing before her was the real reason for his success. It wasn't just raw talent. It wasn't just hard work. Earl had played a huge part in shaping him. Luca, the guy who had stood at the top of the national music scene, had Earl to thank for getting there. And this was a hard pill to swallow. The other ladies in the group had their own jaw-drop moment. The long-haired lady finally found her voice. Luca, wait, are you saying that when you won the national competition, the roommate you were thanking was him? Seth also perked his ears, listening closely. He silently prayed that Luca would deny it, but Luca's nod instantly shattered his hope. He had spent the last 5 minutes tearing Earl down, proudly declaring that Earl could never surpass him. Earl's musical ability wasn't just good. It wasn't just above average. It was so far ahead that even Luca, the national champion, had to acknowledge it. Seth had been loud just moments ago, talking about how Earl had no future in music. His silence after hearing what Luca had said was deafening. Chapter 153. At that moment, in the eyes of the ladies, Earl's musical talent was now on par with Seth's. Despite his humble background, his sheer skill made him undeniably attractive. Women at this age might be drawn to wealth, but they still carried a certain idealism, a belief that true talent could lead to a bright future. And Earl, he was proof of that. Seth, however, looked like he had swallowed a lemon. With a stiff expression, he forced out, even if you've got talent, without money, you're not going anywhere in the music industry. At this point, his bitterness and insecurity were so obvious that he just came off as petty. Faye, meanwhile, was still looking at Earl differently. There was something new in her gaze, curiosity. She smiled softly as she said, Earl, I had no idea you were this good. Why don't we go to the concert together? But instead of looking flattered, Earl remained unbothered, his expression calm. You guys go ahead, he said casually. I have something to take care of. Faye blinked. Oh, okay then. She kept her voice light, but for some reason, she felt a small, strange disappointment. Seth, eager to regain control of the moment, scoffed. Let's just go. Not everyone can afford these tickets, you know. And not everyone is important enough to be given a free pass. Luca was irritated, and he shot back instantly, Seth, show some respect. Earl deserves this way more than we do. Seth let out a dry laugh. Oh, please, do you think talent is enough? This industry is all about connections and money. Wake up. Faye and the other girls turned to him, disgusted by his arrogance. Seeing their reactions, Seth finally shut up. But Earl didn't argue. He simply said goodbye to Faye and Luca and walked away. Faye watched as he disappeared into the night, a strange feeling stirring inside her. She noticed something about him for the first time. He always seemed alone. Even with all his talent, there was a certain distance between him and everyone else, like he was carrying something no one else could see. After parting ways with Faye and Luca, Earl deliberately took a quieter route toward the sports arena. He wasn't in the mood to run into them again. But, of course, the universe had other plans. Up ahead, on a secluded campus path, he spotted someone he really didn't want to see, Anna. Last semester, they had shared some great moments together, but in the end, things fell apart. The last time Earl had run into her, it had been at the cafeteria, where he found out she was dating a rich kid from the industry, Alex Shore. But even then, something had seemed off. Alex wasn't exactly treating her well. Anna had tried to put on a show, making it seem like they were deeply in love, but Alex's cold, dismissive attitude toward her had been painfully obvious. And right now, they were arguing loudly, with no one else around. Neither of them bothered lowering their voices. Anna's voice was furious. Alex, how could you sell the tickets I worked so hard to buy? Give them back. Alex shrugged, completely unfazed. So what if I sold them? You bought them for $1,500, and someone offered to pay $2,000. That's an easy profit. Only an idiot wouldn't take the deal. Anna's whole body shook with anger. You absolute scumbag. Give me back the tickets. If you sell them, I swear I'll lose it right here. Chapter 154. Alex slapped Anna's hand away without hesitation. Anna, we're barely scraping by. If I don't sell the tickets, what are we supposed to do? Starve. Anna's face went pale, her voice trembling. Alex, you bastard, did you gamble our grocery money again? We can barely afford to eat, and you're still pulling this crap. Alex snapped back at her, his temper flaring. Jesus, Anna, when have I ever let you go hungry? My dad's sending me $5,000 in a couple of days. When that comes in, I'll take you out for a fancy dinner, all right. But Anna had lost all trust in his promises. Tears welled up in her eyes as she shook her head. I don't care. I just want the tickets back. The argument dragged on until Alex suddenly froze. His eyes narrowed, and he let out a sharp, surprised noise. Wait, what the hell? Anna turned to follow his gaze. And there stood Earl. For a moment, her entire body stiffened. The embarrassment hit her like a tidal wave. She hadn't wanted him to see this. Not when she was struggling. Not when she was fighting with Alex like some desperate girl clinging to a guy who didn't care about her. Earl, however, looked completely unbothered. I was just passing by, he said casually. Just pretend I'm not here. With that, he walked past them, completely unfazed. Anna's face went ghostly pale. Her fingers clenched into fists at her sides, but then she forced a bright, plastic smile. Almost too quickly, she reached out and linked arms with Alex, putting on her best carefree girlfriend act. Oh, Earl, you're here for the concert too, she said in an overly cheerful tone. I'm here with my boyfriend. She leaned in closer to Alex as if trying to prove just how happy she was. Earl simply nodded as he said, yeah, I'm going alone. Anna tilted her head, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. She teased, alone. Oh no, that's kind of sad. You should really find a girlfriend soon. Going solo to concerts looks kinda pathetic. She was desperately trying to act like she had moved on, like she was doing better than ever. Alex, catching on, smirked and wrapped an arm around her waist. Yeah, Anna, let's go. The concert's about to start. The two hurried off, practically running from the moment. Earl let out a slow exhale as he watched them disappear. He didn't understand why Anna had to put up such an act. Before he could dwell on it, a loud explosion filled the air. There were fireworks. The concert had officially begun. The sky lit up with dazzling colors, and the entire stadium erupted in cheers. Starlight Entertainment had pulled out all the stops for this event. With some of the biggest names in the industry performing, and with Soul headlining, the concert was on track to become legendary. As Earl's phone buzzed, he glanced at the screen and saw Felix's call coming through. Where the hell are you? Felix sounded panicked. Dude, if something goes wrong at the last minute, this whole concert is going to tank. Get your ass backstage, Earl reassured him, then started making his way to entrance number 2, the exclusive backstage entrance. To his surprise, there was still a crowd gathered there. A group of students had refused to leave, hanging around hoping to catch a glimpse of Soul. Earl, unaware of their intentions, tried to slip through, but the students weren't moving. Hey, dude, if you're trying to see Soul, get in line like the rest of us. It took some effort, but Earl finally pushed through to the front and said to Layla, excuse me. Can I get through? Layla, who was guarding the gate, recognized him immediately. Her face lit up with excitement, and without hesitation, she stepped aside. But just as he was about to walk in, she gathered her courage and pulled out a pen and card. Can I get an autograph? She asked, her voice shaking. Chapter 155. Earl smiled as he took the pen and effortlessly signed his name with a smooth, confident stroke. Then, he turned and walked into the concert venue. Layla, who had asked for the autograph, clutched the signed card like a priceless treasure, her face flushed with excitement. She had expected Soul to be talented, but even his signature looked incredible. Watching Earl's retreating figure, she felt her heart race, completely captivated by his presence. Meanwhile, the other fans in the crowd, who still had no idea what was going on, grew angry. Who is he? Why does he get to go in when we can't? Yeah, we should all be treated equally. If they don't let us in, we'll riot. Let us through. We just want to see Soul. Layla, still holding her signed card proudly, folded her arms and smirked. He can go in because he belongs there. You guys, you don't. Someone in the crowd scoffed. And just who is he supposed to be? She grinned. Oh, you still don't get it. She paused for dramatic effect, then declared loudly, that was Soul. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place erupted as fans frenzied and rushed toward the entrance, pushing forward with renewed desperation. What? That was Soul. Why didn't you tell us sooner? I was this close to Soul, and I didn't know. I need to see him. Let me in. The entrance exploded into madness as fans tried to break through, nearly shoving the gate down. Layla, along with the other student council members, was completely overwhelmed. Security had to form a human barricade, struggling to contain the chaos. At that moment, Faye arrived with Luca, Seth, and the rest of their group. Faye's eyes locked onto Earl's disappearing figure as he walked through the backstage hallway. Her brows furrowed slightly. Turning to one of the student guards, she asked, Layla, wait, you said that was Soul. Layla, still catching her breath from the crowd's uproar, nodded firmly. Yeah, that was him. Faye's heart skipped a beat. But then, she shook her head, trying to brush off the thought. It had to be a coincidence. Sure, Earl was talented. But to say Earl was actually Soul was impossible. Her rational mind refused to believe it. But why did something feel off? Before she could dwell on it, another massive firework display lit up the sky, sending dazzling colors across the stadium. The concert had officially hit its next peak. On stage, a powerful male vocalist took the mic, his deep, resonant voice shaking the entire arena with a song about the vast highlands. The energy in the venue soared, and the audience was completely immersed. Meanwhile, backstage, Earl ran through one final rehearsal, making sure everything was perfect. With the final preparations complete, he was finally escorted into the VIP section, where he would wait for his moment to take the stage. Chapter 156. Faye made her way into the concert venue, her VIP ticket securing her a seat close to the stage. As she settled in, her gaze flickered toward a familiar silhouette in the front rows. It looked like Earl, but the distance made her unsure. The thought unsettled her. Meanwhile, Anna and Alex had also entered the stadium. After relentless insistence from Anna, Alex had finally given up on scalping the tickets and agreed to watch the show with her. Trailing behind them were Anna's roommate, Queenie, and an unfamiliar guy, though noticeably, it wasn't Joshua. Not far away, Leslie had taken a prime seat in the VIP section, surrounded by a crowd of classmates. Sitting right next to him was Bianca, though despite his persistent attentiveness, she looked mildly uncomfortable. A few girls who always hovered around Leslie were throwing not-so-subtle daggers at Bianca, particularly one named Joey Yates, who was practically clinging to Leslie, using every excuse to steal his attention. Across the arena, in a more casual seating section, a group of girls sat together, sipping on drinks and waving glow sticks, chatting excitedly about the lineup. Among them were Gigi, Remy, and Luna, Belle's roommates. A tenor from Montana, his voice booming with incredible power, filling the entire sports arena. Every high note sent waves of energy through the crowd, shaking the venue with cheers and applause. Fireworks exploded overhead, lighting up the night sky, while fans screamed their support. One after another, more artists took the stage, each with their own distinct style. The audience was captivated, completely lost in the music. But as the performances went on, some fans started noticing inconsistencies. Some singers didn't quite match their recorded voices. Some mouthed lyrics were out of sync with the audio. The whispers started spreading. Were some of them lip-syncing? The truth was, lip-syncing at concerts was nothing new, and most fans didn't notice or didn't care, as long as the energy was high. But for those who did notice, a bit of disappointment started creeping in. The concert, while still exciting, had lost some momentum. Then, a production crew rushed backstage to find Earl and tell him it was his turn soon to go up on stage. Technically, it was only the halfway point, but after the dip in energy, the organizers had made a last-minute change. Soul's most anticipated song, Timeless, was being moved up. With his final act still secure at the end, this shift wouldn't disrupt the setlist too much. The crowd had been waiting for this moment. And when the announcement came, the entire stadium erupted. Cheers rolled through the venue like a tidal wave, the energy skyrocketing instantly. Soul's popularity was on another level. Earl walked onto the stage, dressed in a sleek, tailored outfit, his presence commanding the spotlight. But as soon as the lights hit him, the roar of excitement shifted into murmurs of confusion because he was wearing a mask. Immediately, the audience reacted. "Wait, he's hiding his face. Are you kidding me? Don't tell me it's not even him under there. This had better not be some fake stunt." Many fans had paid insane prices or traveled across the country just to see Soul in person. Now, with him deliberately concealing his identity, some felt cheated. But in the end, his voice was the only thing that mattered. And the moment he started singing, they would know if it was really him. This performance had to prove that behind the mask was the legend they came for. Chapter 157. As murmurs of doubt rippled through the crowd, Earl steadied his mic and adjusted his guitar, ensuring everything was right. Then, without hesitation, he started to sing. Perfect stage presence, a magnetic voice, and profound and catchy lyrics. At that moment, all the doubts in the crowd vanished. The noise gradually quieted down. Thousands of fans, completely mesmerized, swayed their glow sticks in unison, their voices melting into the song as they sang along. Even with a mask covering his face, Earl's eyes told their own story, a depth of mystery and charm that drew people in. The lighting wrapped around him like a purple electric current, blending seamlessly with the breathtaking visuals of the stage. The entire performance felt almost otherworldly, like something out of a dream. The stage effects enhanced some of it, but even knowing that, it was still mind-blowing. But the real magic was Soul's voice. It was exactly like the one that had captivated millions online. It actually sounded even better live. Back when Earl had first uploaded his songs, his recordings hadn't been professionally produced. There had been background noise, moments where the rawness of the environment bled through. But here, on a world-class stage, with crystal-clear sound engineering, his voice reached its full potential. The result was absolute perfection. The fans were completely stunned. "He sounds so good. Really, he sounds extremely good. I thought the online version was the perfect one. I can't believe the live version is even better." I was ready to be disappointed by lip-syncing. But not only is he actually singing, he's surpassing every version. There's no doubt now, he's the real deal. Only Soul could take Timeless and push it to perfection. He is truly a legend. An unstoppable legend. As his voice soared, so did the energy in the stadium. Fans screamed his name, tears streaming down their faces, completely lost in the moment. The song ended, and the crowd erupted into one unified chant. Soul, Soul, Soul. Even those outside the sports arena, tens of thousands who hadn't gotten tickets, joined in. Some fans were so overwhelmed they literally passed out from excitement. But even amidst the hysteria, one thought lingered in the minds of many. Why was he still hiding his face? Some wondered if he was disfigured or had some kind of imperfection he didn't want the world to see. Others refused to believe that. After all, plenty of people had seen him at entrance number 2, and the reports were all the same. He wasn't just good-looking, he was breathtaking. Whatever the reason, his true identity remained a mystery. And yet, it didn't matter. Because at the end of the day, his fans weren't here for his face. They were there for his voice and his talent. Anna and Alex sat frozen in the audience, awestruck. Something about Soul's performance felt too familiar. Faye, meanwhile, stared at the stage in a daze. The singer in front of her, the way he moved and the way he played his guitar overlapped perfectly with the image of someone she knew. Chapter 158. She recalled the young man standing by the breezy riverside with a guitar. Earl's figure, actions, hairstyle, and even singing voice were almost identical to Sol's. Faye wondered if it was him. Then, she smiled self-deprecatingly. She was being silly. How could it be him? She couldn't be sure of the answer and ultimately denied the possibility. Meanwhile, Luca frowned and fell deep into thought. Sol's appearance had saved the rather boring performance, making the audience go into a frenzy. They even protested when he prepared to go off stage to rest. They were looking forward to him performing Heart's Desire, because they believed a live rendition of it would only be more perfect and soulful than the online version. The host pacified the crowd, telling them not to tire Sol out. He also promised that Sol would be back for another performance later. After that, a fireworks show and some interactive activities to cheer the crowd up. Sol didn't participate in the interactions, but that didn't dampen his fans' excitement. After his performance, Donald and some other renowned singers took to the stage to perform. They set the crowd on fire, but Sol's grand finale remained the most anticipated performance. Gradually, the star-studded concert came to a close. As the final performer, Sol finally appeared on stage again. This time, he was performing Heart's Desire. His song brought the atmosphere to a climax, and the fireworks accentuated the performance. The overwhelming cheers and screams from the audience signaled the immense influence this new star in the entertainment industry held. In the future, Sol's songs would likely turn into classics. He would solidify his position in the world of music and even be the source of many memories for the people of this generation. When his voice appeared, people would be reminded of their youth, which they would never experience again. They would also forever remember him as a legend. He would remain silent for some time, but whenever he made his move, he would produce an unbeatable song. Sol ended his performance of Heart's Desire. The crowd was so engrossed in it that they even forgot to applaud. They couldn't extricate themselves from the wonderful feeling that his singing brought. Only when the host took the stage to announce the end of the concert did they realize how fleeting bliss was. The crowd was reluctant for the concert to be over, but all things eventually came to an end. The rest of the singers took to the stage again to sing a final song while fireworks lit up the sky. Then, the concert finally ended. The host, organizers, and singers bid goodbye to the audience, whether live or watching on TV, and said their wishes for their next encounter. Though it was sad to part at this point, they would always meet again. The success of this concert made Starlight Entertainment see the immense potential similar activities held. After the concert ended, Felix sought Earl out backstage in hopes of inviting him to participate in the next event organized by Starlight Entertainment. After all, this concert was too much of a success to leave him out. He was one of the main reasons it had been such a hit. Starlight Entertainment wanted to strike while the iron was hot and use Sol's influence to hype things up before having a nationwide tour. They could see his massive commercial worth and endless potential, which would surely make him the company's cash cow. Their stock price would skyrocket, making them rake in the money. However, Earl turned down the offer. He had more important things to do beyond singing, and he didn't want his peaceful life to be disrupted. Still, to gather capital for his gaming company, he agreed to participate in events that could help him earn a sum while maintaining a relatively low profile. Chapter 159. Currently, besides recruiting staff for a major game development team, Panzer Saga was also being upgraded, with Panzer Saga 2 inches being set for release soon. The app for Earl's second in-game had already been approved and was about to be launched. Amid the chaos, Earl also needed to write the background story for one of his major games, Legend of the East. He knew very well that a game needed to have a background story that could lure its audience in if it wanted success. This was important so that it could keep the audience hooked. If a game could garner plenty of attention based on its printed advertisements even prior to the launch, its sales would be largely boosted. Earl had a tough mission ahead of him, but he relied on his highly developed mind and extraordinary mental strength to barely maintain peak efficiency. He turned the impossible into reality. He didn't even participate in the meet and greet session after telling Felix he was leaving. He removed his mask and changed his clothes before blending with the crowd and leaving the hall. He left the stadium like he was a regular audience member. He'd always worn a mask during his performances, so no one recognized him with it off. When he got to the stadium's entrance, he saw it was chock full of waiting fans. Many people held banners that said things like, "Soul, I love you," or, "I'm your fan, Soul," and their necks were stretched as they waited for him to appear. It turned out word had gotten out that he would leave from this entrance. So, his fans had gathered there to wait for him, wanting to get his autograph. Earl was surprised to see Faye among the crowd. Seth and Luca weren't with her, perhaps they weren't interested in star chasing. Anna stood not too far away from her and looked around excitedly. Alex was beside her, looking impatient. Just then, Faye saw Earl. Surprisingly, she took the initiative to speak to him. "Is that you, Earl? Why didn't you come with us if you were here for the concert?" He didn't answer her. Instead, he asked, "What are you doing here? Why aren't you at the meet and greet to get Soul's autograph?" She said a little shyly, there was a last-minute announcement that he wasn't participating in the meet and greet. "That's why I'm waiting here for him to come out." She'd always been Soul's die-hard fan and was desperate for an autograph. She scanned Earl as she spoke, but he looked so composed that she couldn't tell whether anything was up. He asked in surprise, "Can't you go inside to catch him?" She gave him a profound look before sighing. "I'd love to do that, but the organizers told us that he's made a run for it. That's why I'm here to try to catch him." At that moment, Anna noticed Earl and Faye talking to each other. She didn't say anything to Earl, though. Alex saw them, too. He snarled, "Fuck, what bad luck. Why do we run into bastards like him wherever we go?" Anna was worried he would get into a fight with Earl, so she hurriedly tugged on his shirt to tell him to stop. Earl heard Alex's words, but he didn't want to lose his composure over something like this. Besides, he had plenty to do. He chose to ignore Alex. Unfortunately, Alex became more obnoxious when Earl didn't say anything. He thought the latter was afraid of him, so he pointed at Earl and asked Anna, "What? Are you upset because I'm talking about your ex like this? Look at how he doesn't even dare to look at me despite someone insulting him. It's clear he's a coward and a loser. I honestly don't know how you were blind enough to fall for someone like him." His unfiltered insults attracted everyone's attention, and Anna turned red. "Can you put a lid on it, Alex? Don't you know how embarrassing this is?" He seemed unfazed. "What do I have to be embarrassed about? I'm much better than that loser. I'd slap him right now if there weren't so many people around." Chapter 160. Earl was usually well-mannered, but Alex's words angered him. He asked darkly, "Who are you insulting?" Faye wasn't happy with Alex's hostility, either. She looked at him coldly, ready to call for reinforcements to teach him a lesson if things went awry. He had no idea the misfortune that was about to befall him and grew even more obnoxious. He pointed at Earl and growled, "You, of course. What are you going to do about it? Bite me, try me if you dare, you loser. I guarantee I won't rip you to shreds." The crowd backed away when they saw that a fight was about to break out. Some people despised Alex for being so obnoxious, and some waited to see how Earl would teach him a lesson. Some people even pulled out their phones to record the showdown. Most of the crowd merely waited for things to play out. Anna was worried a fight would actually break out, so she hastily tried to pull Alex away. "Let's go, Alex. Stop embarrassing yourself." Then, she turned to Earl and said, "Leave, or he's really going to hit you." She knew he was alone, while Alex had many men with him. Earl would definitely lose out if they were to fight. However, Alex continued to provoke Earl, seemingly afraid the latter would flee. "Come at me, loser. Stop hiding behind a woman's skirts if you've got any balls." Earl smiled, revealing a hint of cruelty. He'd gotten in with the bad sort during his middle school days, so he had plenty of experience in fights. That, coupled with his crushing strength now, meant he had nothing and no one to fear. He stepped forward and made his move so quickly that no one saw what happened. All they heard was a crisp slap. Then, they saw Alex lying on the ground, a clear handprint on his face. The onlookers couldn't help clapping and cheering when they saw this. It was only right to employ such methods when dealing with a rabid dog. He had to be taught a lesson. Alex staggered to his feet, looking pained. His two friends immediately ran forward to circle Earl. The latter didn't look scared in the least, though. He stood straight as a cold smile curved his lips. Alex spat out a mouthful of blood while shoving Anna to the ground. Then, he pointed at Earl and snapped, "You're dead meat, fucker. I'll break your legs right here and now." He and his friends spread out, forming a triangle around Earl. Faye was so frightened by this that she pulled out her phone, wanting to call her friends for help. Just then, some security guards ran over to help after receiving reports of a fight. A plump guard snarled, "What's going on here? Break it up. Who's getting into a fight?" Alex took the opportunity to push the blame on Earl. "This bastard made the first move. Look at how swollen my face is." The guard turned to Earl with a dark expression. "Is that true? Did you make the first move?" Instead of answering, Earl coldly asked, "Why don't you ask around and see who was the one who started this?" The crowd pointed at Alex and said he was the one who picked the fight. However, the guard said impatiently, "I don't care who started the fight. I just want to know whether you were the first to throw a punch. Come to the security room with me." He reached out to drag Earl away as soon as the words were out of his mouth.